How can startup ecosystems, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, be further developed?
After pandemic, the culture of working from anywhere is actually supporting the growth. Probably someone from Roorkee can be a good graphic designer. The entrepreneur can be based out of Shillong.
What, according to you, are key elements beyond funding that can help us make this ecosystem robust?
First thing is, that is one of the challenge. Before funding or after funding, keeping customer at the center of whatever you do. These kind of factors should get into the product development, and that makes that product a world-class product.
We now live globally in an era of collaboration. Idea of competition, I think, does not exist. We all can collaborate and work together.
When you share, when you meet people, you also get to learn certain things at the back of your mind.
There are friends of mine who say, "Yaar, सारे details बताए नहीं चाहिए. Maybe he'll go to a competitor. Maybe he'll start something of his own." ये mindset है.
So what you are sharing is what, not the how part of it. The how part is learned when he is along with you.
Why do you think international investors are bullish on Indian startups?
Because our growth probably highest in the world. We are soon to become third largest economy. The need of emerging technologies.
How do a founder communicate challenges or setbacks to investors?
Oh, that's a great question. If you are maintaining, yes, all is well to your investor, then probably investor also thinks that certain things are being hidden. But if you are honest and say,
how do you treat investor rejections?
And for that reason, I'm out.
As learning opportunities.
So the best way to handle investor rejection is,
what's your vision for Bharat Startups, as this is a Bharat Startup podcast series?
so Bharat Startup is
Invest for the long haul. Don't get too greedy and don't get too scared.
Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue.
Hello and welcome to Between Us. Make every conversation count. In continuation with the Bharat Startup series, today I have with me a very, very important building block of the startup ecosystem. He's a founder, he's an investor, and he's a seasoned veteran with about 2 decades of experience in strategy and innovation management. And he's worked with large Indian conglomerates, Tata Group and Reliance Group, from smart cities to the rollout of world's fastest GSM. My guest, Chintan Oza's journey is inspiring testament to the power of innovation. Chintan, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. It's my pleasure and honor to be here and share my views.
Thank you. I just have, before we get into the segments of the podcast, a quick, pit stop through your journey. Career span expanding two of India's largest conglomerate, Tata and Reliance. What inspired you to pursue a career in technology and strategy?
By God's grace, I finished my electrical engineering and landed in field of fiber optics, and that was the time when it was like 98 and industry was booming.
Mm-hmm.
As in, when I finished my specialization in fiber optics, I was at the right place at the right time. And my first project was upgradation of satellite uplinking stations across India. And that made me curious. And I started working with system assemblers and engineers from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I, being a local guy, I started also coordinating and managing things within the team as well as with the customer. And that is where I got interested into the field of technology as well as managing the technology and deploying projects.
Mm-hmm. So I believe your experience in implementing projects pertaining to India's first smart city. What were your key takeaways from these initiatives? And how did that transition to where you are today?
Okay, so the key takeaway is, as and when the smart cities started, it gave us the conviction that yes, there is a need for rebuilding and renovating our country.
Hmm. Hmm.
We're looking for a new life, connected life, better life, and it's not just the citizen, but government is also committed. This is where around 110 plus smart cities, the smart city mission was announced. Apart from that, so these were the brownfield smart cities. Then was the growth for greenfield, and that is where gift smart city was built in. And that actually inspired that yes, there is a need for new technology, new needs, and we are ready to be the consumer of new technologies as a citizen. Before these smart cities, probably common men were not exposed to technology or tech enabled governance.
It was more from a perspective of software development, I guess. So.
It was more of a software development. Governments did not use technology at scale to offer various services to citizens. Right?
And did that transition you into the startup ecosystem? Was that the...
Eventually, yes. So that was the milestone where, before which I was a sheer technology manager working in a technology function. And with my Gift Smart City project, I transitioned from a sheer technology function to a sales function. And that is where I saw the other side of the coin and mastered it. And eventually landed into startup ecosystem.
Wonderful. So I think we will get into that in detail. We have our podcast broken up into 3 main segments: what matters, what's brewing, and the rapid fire questions. So let's begin.
Sure, let's begin.
So Chintan, we start off with the first segment, what matters. And this segment is about insights into building a strong foundation for startups. And of course, navigating the funding landscape, which is one of the most important aspect of it. Let me begin by asking you this question. How can startup ecosystems, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, be further developed?
Thank you so much for asking this question, because this is where the next wave of growth is going to come. There are a couple of factors which are driving growth in tier 2 and tier 3. First one is availability of internet. We have got more than 7,000 cities and towns lit up with either 4G or 5G internet. The data consumption of rural internet subscriber is almost equivalent to the urban subscriber.
Wow.
Their spend on e-commerce is almost higher than the entire spend which is made by a urban segment. So the spend by the rural segment is higher than the urban segment. If you look at the penetration of digital devices amongst women in rural, it is higher and it is growing at a faster pace than men in rural. So this is where your next connected customer would be. And moreover, because after pandemic, the culture of working from anywhere is actually supporting the growth. Probably someone from Roorkee can be a good graphic designer, and the businessman, the startup owner, the entrepreneur can be based out of Shillong. A coder from Bangalore can support the startup. So definitely our society is moving towards a uniform growth, and where the segment or the, I would say, clear boundaries between tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 would eventually vanish, and will have a great uh, internet connect,
Mhm.
decent infrastructure. Earlier, we used to feel that, okay, fine, the infrastructure of Mumbai or any metro city is much better than any tier 2, tier 3. But if we go to tier 2, tier 3, we see metro, we see those features or those brands available in malls of Mumbai in those cities as well. Right. So this is how that gap is reducing day by day. We are one of the largest English speaking population, and that is where we are also likely to get good amount of skills in these cities in tier 2 and tier 3.
Mhm.
We get 7 million graduates every year. 70 लाख graduates हर साल market में आ रहे हैं. So we are likely to get good resources sitting in these cities, and it's good chance to have a decent, I would say, scalable option, startups, and why not a unicorn or a sunicorn may pop up from these tier 2 and tier 3 cities in next 1,000 days time.
Mhm. Are you confident about it?
Yes, I'm confident about it. Tier 2, tier 3 city, at least from tier 2, will have a good startup.
When we talk about tier 2, tier 3, can you name a few which you feel right now they're doing extremely well?
There are a couple of good startups. I would say they are having a decent size of business. Like there is a CRM. They are based out of Ahmedabad,
Mhm.
and they are giving a tough time to well-known CRMs. Right? There is a recruitment company who is from Ahmedabad, and they became unicorn. There are a couple of EV startups who are making big from tier 2, tier 3 cities. So that is where that gap is really reducing, and startups are having a decent product at a decent price and a decent customer service.
Also, I think when it comes to compensations, there would be a sizable difference between a metro city and a tier 2 city in terms of the compensation for their
In terms
employees.
of compensation, yes, there is a gap. There is a gap, but then again, the kind of cost of living in these
Yeah.
cities actually compensates that gap, and that is where, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you get a good resource, and they're willing to stay longer.
Correct. That's I was just about to come to that. Like in a metro city, people have the option of jumping, but that I think that mindset to get a job and be there and grow, that's really a huge.
And as a founder, you can actually offer option and grow together with the employee.
Yes,
Help him
absolutely.
upskill and reskill, and then that bonding goes longer.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think global corporations are playing a good enough role, if I may ask, in the Indian startup ecosystem? Are
I
they
would say
able?
yes. I
Mhm.
would say yes.
Mhm.
And credit goes to everyone, right from AWS to Microsoft to Google, for their respective programs. They have been offering good cloud credits. There are various international accelerators who are also having their presence in India, and that is where we are getting a bridge to those global knowledge of building world-class startups. So yes, these foreign players are also playing a decent role.
Mhm. If I so the Startup India initiative was started off about 8-9 years back. If I remember coming back from the US for a short break, the first, I think it was Make in India conclave, which happened in BKC. I was there, and I was quite impressed by the turnout, people coming in from different parts. Now, at that point in time, I think there was Startup India, and now there are DPIIT and several other institutions. How do you, I mean, having seen been in this ecosystem for a long time, how do you compare them to similar global organizations?
So the rise of Indian startup ecosystem is unmatched. I mean, in less than a decade's time, you can see that almost when we started, it was 453 registered startups, if I remember correctly. And right now, it's like more than 125K. So the kind of growth, the pace, and this is all because a great network of accelerators, incubators, and various engagement initiatives, which are also supported by grants. Not even by government, but by also private players, certain foundations, NGOs, that has created this great ecosystem.
I think somewhere down the line, it was always like there was private participation, not enough from the government, or sometimes the government was doing something, the private participation wasn't enough. I think now we've reached a balance in terms of policies with equal participation from private enterprises. You feel that way?
Yeah, and then I'm actually convinced that our digital public infrastructure is playing a great role.
That's the game changer, right?
Because if you look at the dot-com bubble era, right? We used to order t-shirt and then probably we never got it. You and me come from a generation where we used to pray before logging into IRCTC and say, God, I should get a ticket booked today, right? We come from a generation where we used to transact online, probably make a bill payment, and then the transaction used to get rejected and we used to get that amount back in our account in maybe a week's time. But the entire game has changed. And that has developed enormous trust by the customer. Probably let me ask you, what was the least amount of transaction you made on UPI? It would be a single digit, right? Maybe 5 rupees, 7 rupees,
absolutely.
right? And then it's so instant that you don't need to reconfirm, right? Today's generation, they just walk out of the auto and then they would say, okay, fine, bhaiya, payment kar diya. And that guy also doesn't care to confirm, check, wait even for 30 seconds. He says, okay, and then he drives on.
Yeah.
That's the kind of trust. This trust, the strong internet backbone, has enabled our startups to grow beyond urban areas, right? Now you can see almost many of the Indian startup brands are available in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So it's a mix of internet connectivity, digital public infrastructure, awareness, trust factors, education, English speaking people. So that is how these factors are actually encouraging our startup ecosystem to move to the next level and maintain the momentum even.
Funding is obviously a key factor for these startups to grow. But what, according to you, are the key elements beyond funding that can help us, make this ecosystem robust?
So first thing is maintaining the momentum. That is one of the challenge. Before funding or after funding. Keeping customer at the center of whatever you do. Because we are a country with multiple cultures, multiple preferences, and if you want to build a product which is suitable to each Indian, and if you want to scale beyond India, then also it is acceptable by everyone, then you need that specific type of product development capabilities which helps every type of user with different type of economic background, different type of education, different type of religious belief, different type of cultures. And then these kind of factors should get into the product development, and that makes that product a world class product. So even if you get funded, but if you do not have that vision, you are not backed by right set of mentors, you are not backed by right set of advisors, then that gap may create a big difference.
So you touched the right chord for the next follow-up question. And I think we were discussing this just before the podcast started. Um, you know, mentorship, important. Access to networks, important. Um, how do you think, so how would you define a good mentorship? And how does one seek a good mentor?
Okay, so a good mentorship is something where, if I talk about myself,
Mhm.
a good mentor is, I mean, I enjoy people around me, my mentees growing, right? So a mentor actually gets encouraged when mentee follows their advice. So that is where I really get inspired, and then I also work with mentee, and then we achieve their goals together. And about finding a mentor, probably there are nuances. Like, I mean, one size doesn't fit all. You get one mentor who inspires you, keeps on track. If you are weak in finance, you need to have someone who is good at finance. If you need some new thought process, or you want someone who is a senior person to validate your marketing strategy, then go for a marketing mentor, right? So depending on the different skill sets, you can have a mentor who would bring in his decades of experience and give you the right advice.
Mhm.
And then there can be one mentor who is kind of, having a long view of your long term vision and keeps on guiding you. So my advice to all my mentees is, have different type of mentors. Have around 5 to 7 mentors in
As a
your
founder.
life as a founder,
Mhm.
so that they would keep on guiding you and handhold you to the next level.
Mhm. Would you be able to share some examples, at least at your end or around you? You've seen how mentorship has actually helped an organization, a startup grow. Do you have?
Yeah, definitely. So I have been working with a couple of startups.
Mhm.
One of them is a fintech startup. We have been working on the product for almost uh, 3 years, and that is where it went for multiple iterations. And now the product is actually well accepted by the customer. It is growing at a decent pace, and the startup is expanding, in already present in 4 states, and now we are targeting another 6 states. So that is how we are also having a presence in multiple states now. So it has been a journey where we had those heated arguments. We also had our fair share of overnight schedules. And I would say that those nudges, those plans, and the dedication of the founder has helped the entire team to achieve their vision now.
All right. Another aspect, when especially I had Ashish Gardeji on my show a couple of days back, and he, as you know, wears multiple hats, but he's also the director of the incubation called Magic. And if I were to ask you this question as a mentor, and of course as the multiple roles you have. How does a founder actually assess the value of an accelerator or an incubator? What's the best way to assess?
So, in my view, the best way to assess is what sort of specialization the accelerator has.
Okay.
Like certain accelerators are good in incubating or accelerating startups which are in AI. Certain are product based, certain focus on healthcare. So if it matches your interest, then you've got that set of mentors available.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay.
next layer would be what sort of mentors they have, whether it meets your requirement, whether it meets your vision, then you can go for it.
Okay.
Third comes availability of grants. And fourth one is how friendly the entire setup looks to you as a founder.
When you say friendly, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so I would say friendly is what sort of other startups which are there incubated. How is the team, overall team? If you are, there are certain people who would like to work late nights, but then the accelerator doesn't support. They close down their lab at 8 o'clock. So whether that these are smaller nuances that you many founders prefer to work overnight. Many founders are in transition.
Hmm. Hmm.
They are yet to become a full-time entrepreneur. So these kind of nuances needs to be seen. Because if you are in need of certain office facility or conference facility, and if they are not available, then probably it creates a kind of dissatisfaction. So such infrastructure nuances are also to be seen.
And are there any pitfalls when it comes to engaging with accelerators or incubators?
I would say no, there are no pitfalls. These the kind of nuances, because there are many types of founders who have got those personalized preferences. A smallest one, I would say, I met someone. He was a person from Konkan,
Mm-hmm.
and he was not that good in English. Even he was not so confident on kind of Hindi he was speaking. So his preference was Marathi, and the team welcomed that you can speak in any language. We don't insist that you have to speak only in English. That actually comforted him so much that he could get on to the next level quickly. Wherein I have seen couple of accelerators who insist that Nene, I want you to speak in English because our investors would demand, and then probably if you speak in any vernacular language or your mother tongue, it may not be the right thing to do. But now the entire schema is changing. Any founder can speak in their own language, and investors are also welcoming it.
True. I think this is a very important point, because I think sometimes you have a great product and a great idea, and you have everything in place, and
I met
sometimes
a founder
uh-huh.
who has made a skateboard, electric skateboard, and they are from Nashik, and they are exporting these skateboards,
Wow.
right? But they speak fluent Hindi and Marathi. They are not, I mean, they are not that kind of, people who are well versed with English. But still, they made a startup and they are exporting.
There you go. I mean, it's
And this is not only one example.
there are many such
If you look at
examples.
our diamond industry,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at our textile industry, if we look at, there are a couple of other industries like shipbreaking. People have been buying ships and they are not so good in English. Diamond traders, they are not so good in English, but still they have got big offices in Belgium and across the world.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely language is not a barrier.
And I think if you were to even look at international companies who move, I think they they do take the effort to understand when they come to India. But they're extremely proud of their language and their culture, and I think they are perfectly fine, doing business. So this was a very important because I've seen some entrepreneurs holding back just because they feel they are not able to communicate and the message does not go through.
Yes. So that is where I, as a mentor, also comfort them.
Mhm.
That it's okay to be from Gaya, right? But then if you start clocking 3 lakh rupees a month just by selling organic fertilizer, then you are an achiever in your
Yes.
own sense.
True. Let's move a step forward towards the challenges we face. Now, I think we've already discussed this we've touched upon this, but we've been hearing this, especially in the last few years, about the ease of doing business, and there sometimes seems to be a debate around what that means. And of course, ease of doing business, one part of it is infrastructure, because I think that's a key part of it, and the other is um, policies, or red tapeism or paperwork. Um, where do we stand today vis-a-vis 10 years back?
We are much advanced.
Mhm.
Lot many processes have been digitized, and that is something a favorable factor in my view, like filing of returns or getting any reimbursements or tax credits, etc. is totally automated.
Mhm. Completely.
It's all 95% it's automated, right?
Mhm.
The only challenge an entrepreneur gets is as and when he doesn't have the right set of people
Mhm.
to do the job.
Okay.
Certain street smart entrepreneurs try to cut corners and they get some person who is not so competent and he doesn't understand the industry they operate in. So that is where you need to have right person, a right set of people who understand what sort of business you are in, and they file the right set of returns for you.
Hmm.
If you cannot afford to have an in-house employee, then you need to have the right person who will do the outsource activity for you.
Do you feel, I mean, I know that in a large structured corporation, you have compliance officers. Having worked with multiple Fortune 50 companies in the US, and they have legal officers, compliance officers, and the works. In a startup, that might be a challenge. And so you are always dependent on a professional services from the outside to do it. I have a two-pronged question here. One is ease of doing business. Yes, important, because startups are the growth engine for the economy. Do you somewhere have this fear that there are not enough oversights or checks and balances in place? Or do you feel that way we are okay?
We are okay. We are okay. Uh, Set regulations and regulators are alert.
Hmm.
So we're not going to have a situation where we'll have some kind of economy bubble, right? The right checks and balances, the right digitized processes are around. And that has been I would say, the advantage point for our economy. Having said that, what my advice to startup at this juncture would be build longer term relationship with your chartered accountant, with your lawyer, right? Because every time it's not a good part to be so cost sensitive and then keep on filing your returns from different people every year now and then. Go for a longer relationship and have a chartered accountant, have a lawyer who understands your pain points, and you get the right representation that is reflecting in uniformly, right?
There's this word which they call jugaad. Like,
Jugaad. Yes,
yeah?
avoid jugaad. And then
Yes.
because many a times what happens is As in when entrepreneurs who are having a corporate experience,
Mhm.
many of them have got, because all of us have pay income tax before we receive salary, right? So filing income tax return is just a procedure
Hmm. Hmm.
for most of us as an employee. So they have a habit that okay fine, सबसे सस्ता return कौन file करता है, मैं उसी के पास जाऊंगा. And when they become a former entrepreneur, probably such kind of things should be avoided. You have a CA firm who assists you for a longer period, right from incorporation to compliances, filing returns time to time and all. So that really matters to have the right person with you for a longer period.
Hmm.
Avoid changing these kind of service providers maybe on 2 to 3 years time period even.
Correct. And I think somewhere, and you can correct me if I'm not fully correct, but sometimes I've noticed this as I speak to entrepreneurs here. Um, I find that the legal side of it is they somehow feel हाँ हो जाता है वो legal का काम इतना I think the whereas when I look back to the US, of course that's a litigious society to the full, but especially when it comes to business compliance and paperwork, and especially if you are today in the business of data, that's a very important and I think somehow we, just as general consumers, we don't look into the fine prints when we take a loan or buy a product, but now we are talking about running a business.
I
Do
would
you?
like to yes, so I would like to narrate two instances here. I witnessed a founder who was almost about to cry because his co-founder left with the code just 3 weeks before the launch. The technical founder left. There was some fight over a drink, and something would have been brewing earlier even.
Yeah, of
We are
course.
not sure. But then that guy left with the code.
Mhm.
He stopped picking calls. And that is where what I could realize that they never had a discussion on a co-founder agreement even. Even if you have a co-founder, it is good to have a agreement between two co-founders.
Absolutely.
And that agreement must have a exit clause.
Yeah.
A separation clause must be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
In another instance, where everything, they actually signed the term sheet, and one of the co-founders said, now I need extra equity, otherwise I'm not going to work. So these kind of things which are faced by startups.
And these are real issues, right?
Real issues. At that point of time, they realize that how do I make sure that I avoid these things? This is the point where, because you and me have worked in those larger corporations, they have got those formal legal and other compliance functions available with them. You cannot afford to hire an in-house lawyer because you don't have that much of work. But at least you can have a lawyer by your side with whom you can discuss and actually get these things vetted.
True. I remember when we got back and I started this podcast, I who later on has gone to become a dear friend. He's based in Delhi. He's also a lawyer. And when we talk about it, he always tells me that, in the initial phase, हमको समझ में नहीं आता है. But as the organization grows, you'll realize the importance of compliances. Like he spoke about the data protection bill, which is like, he said, हम सिर्फ बोलते हैं, none of us really want to even read one bit of it. I mean, I've seen my friends signing papers and when I ask them, क्या देख रहे हो? अरे वो तो बस it's okay. It's fine print है. And I agree that you may not be able to read, but at least you should know what you're getting into. Those factors matter.
And in fact, startups who are dealing with sensitive customer information and all, I also request them to get their cyber security in place.
Absolutely.
They must get their entire architecture audited by a qualified cybersecurity expert.
Mm-hmm. Very. It's. I feel this to me is very close to my heart too. Is that and again a two-part question, which is how do our startups, Indian startups, the Bharat startups, compete with globally funded companies? One, and the second part to that is how do we better tap into these global markets?
So first one is consistency
Mm-hmm.
in product
Okay.
and a roadmap for
Hmm.
growth.
Basically, a vision board to see how far you are going to be in the next
How
5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
And then you should also have newer products, right? So that is something which is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the startup founders, they have limited vision on the roadmap.
Hmm.
They don't keep on growing their roadmap. They don't have structured roadmap document even. They have a vision, but then what is it that you are going to achieve in next 3 years? That itself is not documented.
Hmm.
So a right vision, a right vision document, a structured roadmap is important. That is to address the first part of the question. And second part was if you can just
Yeah. I mean, how do we better tap into global markets? I know India is a vast local market, but if we were to, let's say, take our products into the global markets, how do we do that? I'm not just a legal compliance perspective. What do you think should be the best practices for our startups?
so we are like one of the top 5 largest economies
Absolutely.
on the globe.
Yeah.
The entire world recognizes importance of India and Indian economy. We have been the software capital of the world. So we have been there, done that. Our automobile companies, our space, our startups, they have proven their worth on global stage multiple times. When you want to scale up further and then enter those neighboring markets, we have an advantage because we have a captive audience.
True.
Be it Singapore, be it Dubai, be it US, be it Canada, be it UK or Australia. You've got that set of people who have got high regards for India and Indians. So when you enter these countries, you enjoy that natural comfort. You are not alien in these markets. And if you are smart enough to benchmark your competition in those markets while you enter, you can actually deliver these services at par and probably better ones. And many startups are gearing up.
So I think as we come to the final part of this segment, and to me this is the most important part because I personally believe, having been a working professional, being an entrepreneur, and now as an entrepreneur in this new media space, I think our greatest asset are our people. I think there's no question about it. Let me try to break this up into two parts. One is, of course, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, networking is very important. So my first question to you is, how do we build meaningful connections, which goes beyond the traditional networking? And how can that also translate into tapping good talent?
All right. So the first one is how to build a meaningful network. So many founders, I have to push them to attend in-person events. They are very shy.
Okay.
They are into their shell and they continue to build what they are doing, but they do not recognize the importance of attending industry events. Because this is where you meet people. This is where you meet your potential customers. This is where you can meet mentors. This is where you can meet fellow entrepreneurs who can help you and share their best practices. Many entrepreneurs, They do not network.
Hmm.
If you network, you understand, you can share your pain point that, yeah, right now I'm facing certain issues. You may encounter someone who would have solved that problem in a better way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then he can help. So founders help founders.
That's such a wonderful statement, and it's true.
And one should not feel shy
Hmm.
because they are not competing against you, but they are just ahead. So founders actually initially they feel shy. They don't discuss what they are building even. And then they make certain statements which probably do not help you understand what they are building. So my request or my advice to founders is speak up, share what you are building, how
Hmm.
you are building, feel good about it and take pride in what you are building.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Definitely a proprietary technology piece can be hidden and say, okay, this is something which is our proprietary. But then as and when there is some discussion, feel good about it and share what you are building. If you don't share, then people won't get to know.
Because I think, Chintan, and correct me if I'm. The fact is that we now live globally in an era of collaboration. I mean, the idea of competition, I think, does not exist. I mean, we all can collaborate and work together, right? I mean, as a community.
As a community. Plus, what happens is when you share, when you meet people, you also get to learn certain things at the back of your mind.
True.
Right? How other guy is presenting. Is there anything which you can learn from his pitch deck? Is there an interesting slide? Those informal learnings happen when you attend these events as an attendee. And these are not classroom learnings, right?
Correct.
The kind of learnings you get is from different sources. Like, I mean, as we say that certain knowledge is imparted by our parents. Certain knowledge is imparted by our teachers. And certain knowledge you generate by your own. And if you do not attend these events, then that third piece is missing many a times. And it has got that gap in knowledge. So that is where attending these events is important. And the next part was how do we
tap into
talent.
and how do we retain them? Because I think that's one of the challenges which startups would face from time to time.
So tapping talent has got multiple sources. I advise my mentees, walk into your alma mater, meet the placement officer, and say, hey, I need 2 Python programmers. It's just as simple as that. They are willing to help you, but why don't you approach your alma mater? Probably you studied in a different city and now you are setting up your business in a different city. But walk up to a nearest academic institute and seek help. Seek interns, right? References by your employees is another way. These days, everyone has got their own alumni WhatsApp groups.
Yes, true.
Put up a note that, hey, I'm looking for a UI UX designer. Do you have any recommendations? It's just 2 lines and people are willing to help you.
Do you think there are strategies that could help startup, access high impact networks?
Yes, so definitely there are multiple networks which are available. You can leverage these networks by becoming a member, engaging with them in different events and meeting various members, going through their magazines, in-house publications, and then probably getting in touch with the respective authors. Right? You remember हम लोग को स्कूल में सिखाया जाता था आपके घर के बाहर का स्ट्रीट लाइट नहीं चल रहा है एंड देन राइट अ लेटर टू म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर or respective authority, right? How long we are, why we are not engaging with these authors. If you like some article or if you have certain queries in extension to what the content is being produced, simply write to the person and get that knowledge.
True. So true. I think in a world of social media where we are excited to comment on reels, what you just mentioned makes so much of sense. Write to the person, just reach out and have a conversation. Um, one final question in this segment before we move on to the next one, from a policy standpoint, and um, Startup India and similar institutions are impacting. Um, if I were to ask you this, do you feel the regulations we have now? I mean, I think um, how much of it is truly enabling innovation, and how much of it do you feel are stifling growth?
See, I would suggest, or I would say that current regulations are encouraging innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Like recently, probably it was a headline that we filed one of the highest number of patents.
Mhm.
So definitely the entire ecosystem or the environment is encouraging innovation.
Mhm.
The challenge at my side, or in my opinion, is how to monetize these innovations. Because this is where I see a gap. You're filing patents, but you're not monetizing patents.
How do we do that?
On a global scale,
Hmm.
there are less than 2% patents which are monetized. So people file patents, but they don't monetize. And as you rightly asked, how do we fill the gap? Innovate something which is useful to the customer.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you innovate something which is not useful to the customer, probably that innovation goes into a zip file in a hard disk.
I remember my first founder, the startup I worked with, he used to always tell me, Santosh, मार्केट तुम्हारा कस्टमर है, जहाँ कस्टमर है वहाँ तुम्हारा मार्केट है. और and I remember my first teacher was my late father. He would tell me that the best definition of selling is not selling but making people buy, and that happens when you provide value. So I guess that's where the patents come in. All right, sir. Thank you for the lovely conversation in the first segment. We'll move to the next segment, which is what's brewing. And I've kind of broken this up into three parts. One of it, as I shared in the earlier segment, to me, people, very important aspect. I think to me, people and process combine to bring the intellectual capital to any organization. In the earlier segment, I spoke about the how do we tap into the talent. Obviously, one of the biggest challenges for any startup, for any organization, is to retain its talent. In having been a mentor and seen different phases of an organizational growth, what in your experience is the best way to retain talent?
In my experience, the best way to retain talent is shared vision. So if you continue to work together, how would you grow together along with the startup? When the startup gets funded, when the startup gets first 10,000 customers, first 50,000 customers, how the person would grow himself, right? Every employee as an individual has got their dreams. By a certain age, they'll get married. By a certain age, they will have their first car. By a certain age, they will go and buy a home or probably go for their first holiday abroad. So those aspirations should actually get addressed. And as and when the founders address these needs and help their team members realize their aspirations, the bond becomes stronger, and you are easily able to retain the talent. Right?
I think the idea of shared vision is so very important. So you did mention about the shared vision, right? And I know I have friends who are fellow entrepreneurs too. And like with me and my right now, I worked with just partners, the studio partners, content writers. But I have someone who works with me since the past year. Um, and from time to time, because he asks me questions, that's what Gen Z is all about. They push you. I personally, when I joined the first startup many years back, when startup was not even considered cool, I had a boss or a manager or a founder, you can call whatever name, he used to call himself manager, who would absolutely share his vision with me. And I don't see any reason why not doing so. But I know that there are friends of mine who say, यार सारे details बताने नहीं चाहिए. You know, maybe he'll go to a competitor. Maybe he'll start something of his own. ये mindset है. I still hear these mindsets. Is there, I mean, I tell them that जो जाएगा वो जाएगा. But nobody can take away what is there within you, right?
So what you are sharing is what,
Yeah.
not the how part of it.
Yes.
The how part is learned when he's along with you. So never get afraid of sharing your vision with your team member.
Absolutely.
Right?
This is such a profound response. I really wanted to hear this one from you. One of the most important aspect is funding. And let's demystify it in this segment. Bootstrapping versus external funding. When do you think bootstrapping is sustainable, and when do you think external funding becomes a necessity?
It all depends on your customer journey.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in a segment where you supply your product or service and then you get and then you invoice your customer and then you get paid after 60 days time,
Mm-hmm.
then there is a different solution. You need to manage your working capital smartly and then keep the ball rolling. If there is a business model which is a prepaid one, that customers pay you in advance, and then you need to deliver the service, it's a subscription service or something else, then probably the treatment is different. But I am fan of being bootstrapped.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go overboard and sell your equity at a cheaper rate. If you are really believing in your vision and you are person who are willing to go long haul, then probably I don't encourage to get any investor at early stage.
Is there a trade-off in terms of, when you choose between bootstrapping and external funding?
Yeah, sure. So external funding is something where you want to scale beyond your domestic market.
Mm-hmm.
When you want to enter another state, and you can actually grow your startup with your own money at certain scale and certain pace. If you want to break either of these parameters, if you want to grow at a higher pace, then you would need external funding. Right? So try to balance those growth aspirations and need of funding.
So, there are certain terms which are used, common lingos. One of them is pitch deck. It seems to be a very important aspect of it. So, as a podcast, we are about stories. And I think all of us tell stories. At least here, I always say that we are about that. The most important story is the one we tell ourselves. As an entrepreneur, when you're building that pitch deck to reach out to founders, there's definitely a story you're trying to weave in terms of why you exist, how you're going to impact. How do you balance storytelling with real data? There has to be some kind of a balance, right? So,
I'm fan of Bollywood movies,
okay.
and that is where I replicate my movie experience
Mhm.
into pitch.
Mhm.
So introduce the characters. There is a good guy. There is a bad guy. There is a fight between bad guy and good guy. The good guy wins, and the world becomes a good place to live.
True.
Right?
Mhm.
Replicate it in any of the startup stories. There is a problem. There is opportunity. There is a solution which can be scaled up to solve the problem. You have reached to certain point and invite either mentor, investor, or any partner to grow to the next level.
Hmm. All right. How, let's assume I'm a startup entrepreneur. So, how do I ensure that I am choosing the right funding stage based on my needs?
Okay. So let me answer the other way around. Selling equity cannot be the way to run your business.
Sure.
Right? If you are in need of money and then you start hunting for investors, that is not the right way to grow. Never sell your equity to run your business.
True.
If you do that, you are actually spoiling your cap table. You need to understand the growth aspiration and your vision and your product market fit. What sort of product, what sort of feature, and what sort of market you need to enter. What is it that you need at that specific delta phase that would create friction with your existing resource? You may not always need funds. You may need mentors to help you enter markets, to open doors for conversation. If you are a B2B product, then probably you don't need ads on Instagram and Facebook, or even have a hoardings on the crossroad, because you are a sheer B2B product. And then B2B customers do not buy anything by looking at an Instagram ad. Their procurement cycle is different. So try to understand that why you need an investor. If you need an investor, is it that you want to show the world that yes, there is a merit in what you're doing, and certain person with certain good brand and certain value buys into your startup, or you want to break that gravitational pull and then grow at a accelerated pace, enter into 5 countries at same point of time, and then you are in need of funds because of those expansions. You want to build a team and then spend on marketing and all. So in those aspirations, it's good to get an investor. If you have a regular decent rate of growth, your MRR may help you exercise any alternative funding methods.
Sure.
Like bill discounting. Like you can even go for a friends and family round.
I have this question because a lot of people say that when you're bootstrapping, not the first source is your friends and family, right? But उसमें भी हमें कुछ paperwork करके रखना चाहिए, right? Even when you're taking.
Yes, it is necessary that you must have a paperwork done, because that keeps that relationship alive.
Absolutely. Because that's a very very thin line. I mean, that could, if things don't go the way you're planning, it's not just a business relationship. It can actually impact an entire family.
Even you sign the agreement,
Hmm.
you should also mention the way that information about the growth or frequency of that information that would flow. Probably you will have a monthly meeting,
Yeah. It's like
or
how
you
you
would
report to a
exchange
board.
certain report,
Right.
right? Because the investor needs to know whether you are on track, whether if you have committed that, okay, fine, you would give back money after 3 years of time. But it's not so that, okay, fine, forget everything and meet them after 3 years only. You need to keep that relationship alive at an agreed interval. Probably certain people want monthly, certain people go for a quarterly update. Maybe it may be informal, a cup of coffee, having a cup of coffee with them and updating them that with your investment we are able to do these things, good things, and seek their help even.
Absolutely, because I have done that when I started the first time on, because and then I realized that it was so important for me. And at that point in time, my late father, actually, he was very clear about it. Okay, yes, your dad is helping you out in this stage, but understand, just like you, report to a board or to whoever it is, it's important for you to inform us. It doesn't matter if you're parents or not. That's why I actually asked you this question, because I've had friends who've come back and said that sometimes the relationship has really gone really awry, because of expectation mismatch, not not communicating at the right time, because we tend to take relationships sometimes for granted. Family hai, reporting structure ki
It
zarurat
should
nahi
be avoided. It should be avoided. The right information should flow to them, and that would help them on to be on the same page. And probably they would again invest into your
Correct.
startup if
That
they
also helps you, that then they become your ally in your journey.
in your journey.
How important it is, Chintan, to align growth milestones with funding rounds?
It is important to align these two aspects. The reason is every growth stage demands newer challenges. And that is where your investment exercise should start much before.
True.
In a way, raising funds is a continuous process. You cannot decide that, okay, fine, I would need money in month of June, and it's month of April, and let me start approaching investors. So raising funds is a continuous exercise as the growth is. So you need to keep both the things interlocked. Many times what happens is investor has committed X amount, but they are not dispersing entire X amount on day zero. So when you keep them updated about the progress, they will keep your fund ready. So the investment is dispersed in multiple tranches. If you share the right information about the growth and the need of funds, then that disbursement, that specific tranche of disbursement can always be aligned with your growth needs.
Okay. How do you think founders can assess their investment readiness?
The easiest way, in my view, would be getting revenue paying customers.
Okay.
If you have a revenue paying customers, then you can walk up to any investor and say, with my fund, with my savings, and with my friends and family around, I could reach to this level. But from this level to the next level, I need certain funds so as I can accelerate my journey and grow at a higher pace.
Just as I spoke about the readiness, are there, can you share some early warning signs that a startup isn't ready to pitch now?
So, growth, your MRR, if your MRR is not growing at a certain pace, if your MRR is in a zigzag pattern, don't go for any investor pitch.
And Is there a way founders can research the investor portfolios effectively? Is there a platform? Is there a place where they could do that?
So there are paid platforms, there are free information which is available. These days, everyone keeps their LinkedIn profile updated, so you can actually go and check whether that specific investor has invested into any such companies, and their what are their preferences, or what is their favorite sector right now. That can be ascertained, and then that is how you can engage the right investor.
As an important building block of the startup ecosystem yourself, and as an investor, how do you think startups should balance financial versus operational support?
So managing financial as well as operational support is indeed essential. For the operational support, you can take external help. But as far as the financial support is concerned, the smartness of your finance team comes handy, and it becomes very important. There are examples where the right finance guy, the right CFO has helped keep the outstanding minimum, and then that because of that proactiveness, the startup has been able to grow at a constant pace without any external funding. So in my view, you need help, but then external help. So as far as the operational aspect is concerned, it is pure internal plus external. But if you talk about financial aspects, it's pure internal.
Okay. A 3-part question, and I promise you it will not be more than 3-part question. I'm done with those 2-part questions. So understanding investors' portfolio is definitely key to a successful partnership. How do you think founders can ensure that their goals align with the investors? And what kind of questions do you think founders should ask potential investors? Because it's a two-way street, right? It's not only one way. So your thoughts.
So first one is most of the investors are vocal about their investment preferences, what they are investing into. Their track record on various social media channels also is visible. So one can decide whether a person is investing into X domain or not. Another question was, as you mentioned, that how would you check whether he is doing it whether he would be interested in your specific startup. Then you can try the elevator pitch, where you can say that I'm building certain product and we are growing at X pace. Would you like to spend 10 minutes to learn more about it? And that creates a right hook statement to get the investor onto a Zoom call.
Okay. Before you go ahead, have you signed up on an elevator pitch ever yourself?
Well, I would say yes. Not signed up as an investor, but I have sold something to a customer.
Awesome.
And I met the person. I knew that he's the guy, and I was trying to meet him, and then I just told him that I can help you reduce your operational cost by 12%.
See, that if I was there, it would just ring a bell for me, because you're throwing real hard facts and hard numbers. Now, that's a tip to all the entrepreneurs out there. How you make that pitch makes a difference.
So it is very important to understand that the CEO looks for customer delight. The CFO looks for cost. If you are meeting CFO, then talk about reducing cost, his operational expenditure, and you win him. If you're talking to a CEO, talk about better customer experience, more features at the same or lesser price, and you win his attention.
I still remember my before became an entrepreneur, and I was sitting with my founder, and we were generally chatting up, and he would always tell me and our fellow sales guys, customer delight, customer delight, customer delight, and the CFO would always come, yaar, balance out karna, pending invoices, everything, the cost structure, all of those. Take the earliest morning flight, get back by evening, don't stay in a hotel.
So that is where each role has got certain specific preferences. And if you understand these preferences well, you are able to pitch your startup or your product service to them in the right context.
Do you a quick perspective from your end? There are sometimes instances, right, where the entrepreneur has waited a little too long to approach an investor. And I think it stems from my earlier question, that perfect time when maybe we don't know what the perfect time is, but there are times when you probably wait for a little too long before you go. कैसे sort out करें? How do we?
So I would say that waiting too long would actually hamper your growth aspect. And that is where either you need to communicate your preferences with a potential investor or start working with another investor in parallel.
And I think यहाँ पे mentor का role बहुत important होता है.
जहाँ पे आप, if you are not able to, you need to understand the feelings and the undercurrent at the investor organization. Rather than keep on, following up with them, you also check your interest, because ताली दोनों हाथ से बजती है.
बिल्कुल.
So if it is a one-sided love, then probably no point of hanging on for longer period. It's the right time to open another channel with another investor and have your plan B ready in place.
How has the funding landscape evolved in today, if you were to look at it? Is it easier to access, or have the fund, considering how the world economy has shaped and the way it is, do you feel that there is a lot more oversight coming in from the investors? Where do we stand today?
So if I look at, I would like to take a horizon of post-pandemic, because that is something, a major event.
A lot of things changed after that, right?
After that, right? So when we came out of pandemic, the average ticket size was very small. Now the average ticket size per investment has grown to a decent size. And that speaks about the kind of change, the kind of dry powder the investor has, and the kind of product and services they are bullish upon. So in 2024, if you look at the average ticket size, it has grown to a decent pace than 2022 and 2023. So that is something that I would like to share. Apart from this, there are newer opportunities which are being created. More and more people have started investing into startups. More angel networks are visible right now. Earlier, we were not having information about the demo day being planned. Now we see that every week there is 1 or 2 demo days which are scheduled by any of the VCs or accelerator incubators. So that is where these factors which are driving this positive growth, and then investor preference and investment ticket size is growing.
Okay. Do you feel that micro VCs and syndicates, they are playing an important role in democratizing startup funding?
Yes. I really feel that every building block, every stakeholder has got a definitive role to play, and they are playing it in the benefit of the ecosystem. Be it angel network, be it any investment syndicate, they are contributing positively to the startup ecosystem. the investment syndicates at times also offer their network to the founder, and that is how the founder is able to maintain the momentum of the growth apart from getting money.
Um, do you believe, and I think the fact is that global economic shifts absolutely influence startup investments in our country. How big of an influence is it when it comes to startup investments in India? Does it affect in a big way when there is a global economic shift?
Yes, to certain extent, it definitely uh, impacts, but because of the larger spectrum and the size of the economy, at times it also benefits us. I would like to narrate an example that post-pandemic, one of the global VC had a 800 million fund for Asia Pacific, but the same VC allocated $2 billion only for India.
Mm-hmm.
So at times it becomes an advantage point for us as well. If I narrate an example, in 2021, we exported more software services than oil exported by one of the major oil exporting country. So look at the size and scale at which our economy is operating. That continues to build trust of various global investors, and thus they keep on investing into our economy.
And these are real data, right? These are
These are
real
real
hard
data. These are
numbers.
real data.
I have one concern because I was in a conference recently, and somehow I have this feeling, and I would like you to clarify this. Do you believe that startups have started pivoting their strategies to align with funding trends? Do you feel that's happening?
No, I don't think so. Because no one, I mean, there would be exceptional founders who would have a view on the funding trends and then they will keep on pivoting it.
Mm-hmm.
Because founders pivot on the traction they receive from the customer and market, not from the investor.
There are specific sectors which are grabbing the attention of investors more than it. And you are a technology and a strategy person. So here's this question for you. Investors in general are reacting quite positively to the growth of generative AI, blockchain technologies. Do you think there are several untapped sectors in India which could leverage these technologies, and thereby we could probably have disruptive innovation?
Yes.
And if
yes.
so, which are the sectors you see where?
So if you look at generative AI, you can use generative AI for designing digital prints and thus clothes with digital print,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You can use generative AI for efficiently delivering healthcare services. You can use generative AI as your customer care agent and then have a 24/7 conversation with the customer. So there are multiple use cases where generative AI would benefit the industry segment.
I have this for me personally. Our planet, our climate, sustainability is very important, and I think organizations, investors, the world around the world are rising up to the challenge. Also, I believe I've been reading and I've been following that the younger generation of employees, especially I think both in India and globally, I think that the employees are also very sensitive to it, and they are aligning themselves with organizations who are, who focus on sustainability. So there seems to be a rise of impact investors, which is there. Do you feel startups should align their missions? when it comes to ESG and thereby have access to these funds?
My answer would be yes. And I firmly recommend to all my mentees to identify the relevant UN SDGs and then put the icon of these UN SDGs on the title slide of their pitch. If whatever you are building solves certain meets criteria of these UN SDGs, put their icons.
Okay.
Because that would help to convey what you are building and in what segment you are going to the investor in a quickest manner. And let's say, if, as an investor, if I don't invest into, giving a hypothetical example, let's say UN SDG 11. As soon as I look at 11, I'll say, okay, that's not something I invest into.
I think there are 17 of them, right?
There are 17 of them.
Again, is there a trade-off between sustainability and profitability? There seems to be a debate. We don't know how things are going
So
to be.
we are
raised.
entering an era where profitability is not only parameter for growth.
How do startups measure up to this, and how do they showcase this where they stand to impact investors?
So impact investor look for the sheer difference you have made in life of people or the environment. If you are not able to show that use case and voice of customer, then it becomes very difficult to engage any impact investor. No impact investor would like to look at the PPT and then believe what potential impact you would bring in when you grow the startup to the fullest potential. You need to have certain early benefits which you could demonstrate. If you cannot demonstrate it, then probably it becomes too difficult.
The rise of social foundations or organizations, I would call them, let me rephrase this question. I think entrepreneurship has to be purpose-led now. I mean, I think there is a growing chorus of for this. Having said that, another aspect of funding which comes to my mind is crowdfunding. And do you feel that crowdfunding and revenue-based financing are playing a level playing field for underrepresented entrepreneurs?
Yes. Yes, there are multiple forums, avenues where even bill discount is helping founders. Founder who have got a certain PO with certain value. Bill discount is one of the ways to get the order executed. And in these days, probably I feel that it is a recommended way to build the business and scale it further rather than attracting any investor.
Would you recommend some platforms which are best suited for crowdfunding?
Yes, so I would recommend Recur Club as one of the best platform for bill discounting. And for crowdfunding, there are multiple ones. Potential angel investors can decide based on their preferences. Because you need to understand what is the history of that specific crowdfunding platform and what kind of returns they have demonstrated and what kind of customer services they are providing. So basis of which probably a person can decide. But as far as I would say bill discount is concerned, I would recommend Recur Club.
Okay. Do you feel geopolitical shifts and trade policies, they do influence cross-border investments?
Yes, definitely. It impacts. many times what happens is that as and when there are certain challenges in geopolitics domain, then you're not able to conduct the business as usual. Right from supply chain, your day-to-day business communication also goes for a 6.
Correct. Um, why do you think international investors are bullish on Indian startups?
Because our growth
Hmm.
trajectory is decent and probably highest in the world. We are soon to become third largest economy. The stability in political domain, the need of emerging technologies, our previous track record of being a IT capital of the world, our potential of having the largest consumer base below 30 by 2030.
That is, I think, is a huge.
It's a huge advantage point. So these are the factors which are building investor confidence and attracting them to invest into Indian economy.
All right. I think something which every startup has gone through, and being a part of startup, having run a startup, I have experienced it. And this is navigating economic challenges, especially when the downturn comes. I think that's where your resilience is tested the most. What, according to you, through your experience, are the top 3 resilience strategies for startups, especially during economic downturns? I mean, I've said top 3. If you have more.
No. So top 3 is decent. I mean, so first one would be learn to manage working capital smartly. Minimize your outstandings. Renegotiate all your contracts once again and see if there is any fine tuning which can help you optimize your spend. And third thing is avoid hiring until you have a 40-hour job to offer.
Avoid hiring until you have 40-hour job to offer. That is so important, right? What role do you think partnerships play in surviving economic crisis?
So with the right set of partnership, you can shift gears, offer newer product features, newer services to your customers in time, venture into newer markets that helps you maintain your momentum of growth. And third thing is, because it's a partnership, you get the higher number of feet on street. That helps you bounce back easily as and when the economic situation again becomes favorable.
We are talking about balancing cost cutting and growth. So there's the art of reducing your burn rates. We want to do that. But we also cannot compromise on innovation, especially in today's times, because I think that's the hallmark of any startup, especially Indian startup. How do you do that? What would you advise?
So as far as maintaining the momentum of innovation is concerned, you need to have a plan.
Okay.
If you have a plan, then you can optimize and right size certain costs. You can reuse certain part rather than simply discarding. So reusing is something which you can do. Another aspect is see if you can go for a better quality of testing equipments, so that you don't need to have a in-house testing facility. If you have a testing facility at arm's length, then go for it. Third point would be just your objective is to maintain the momentum of the innovation. Then review the product roadmap and the feature roadmap as well, and see that you don't build something which is not needed by the customer right now, because any which way it's an economic downturn. So even if you bring out the wrong feature or a costly feature, which is not preferred by the customer at that point of time, then it creates it wastes your effort and money.
Um, what are the common mistakes you have seen startups make during slowdowns?
The common mistakes is they do not manage their working capital well. They build on outstandings. They become nervous, and that cascading effect comes in the growth momentum.
Hmm.
So then they get into a vicious loop of if you don't get good revenue, you don't get good features. If you don't get good features, you don't get good business. If you don't get good business, your revenue gets impacted. And that is how that you enter that triangle and keep on moving in between them.
Hmm. Do you think there is a way startups can better forecast and prepare for economic uncertainty? Some of the external factors they can't control,
But having a annual operating plan is something which every startup needs to do. Except people who have worked in larger corporations, they do not understand the value of having a AOP, annual operating plan, in place, and then making a living document. Many a times what I have found is, even if they have a AOP, but that is the ideal document which sits in some hard drive. So they do not practice around that document, and then that document is in isolation. So there is a planned value and there is a actual value which are not connected anywhere.
all right. Being an important part of this ecosystem, if I were to ask you, what is that one tool or resource of the ecosystem which is most underutilized by founders?
Underutilized. I would say university spin-offs.
Okay.
In India, we see minimal number of university spin-off. Though the accelerators and incubators are part of the university ecosystem, but you really see less number of universities interested in remaining invested in their startups. The startups, they accelerate, incubate, and they invite investors,
And then they just
recommend
move
them,
on.
and then they just move on, but they do not invest themselves.
Do you think accelerators and government grants are definitely providing lifelines to struggling startups,
Yes,
especially in downturns?
yes, they are providing the lifeline. However, if we look at what do you call the product, service, and the quality mix, the economic downturn actually impacts the thought process of the founder. And many a times what happens is the founder tries to cut corners on quality. They try to go for reducing prices, and they get into those petty tactics where they start undervaluing their product.
But I just want to just ask you this, especially if you're a young founder and you're new to the whole system, how does she or he decide which areas to prioritize and which to where you probably cut corners? That it's a challenge, right, for them?
It is a challenge, and people learn with experience. There is no thumb rule
Yes.
which person can say, but yes, definitely everyone learns with experience.
Investor relationships, very important aspect of it. So especially when it comes to young founders, right? Um, it can be a bit tricky for them to, without the requisite experience, what to prioritize, what areas to prioritize, and where to cut costs. Um, what are your thoughts on that? How do they do that? Because that requires experience.
Yes, so it all comes with experience.
Hmm.
Because many times what happens is you try to reduce scope, you try to reduce on quality, you try to reduce price, and then the customer requirement may be different. Customer may not be willing to compromise on uh, quality. He's willing to pay higher price as well. At times customer says, okay, fine, if you can get me a diluted version because certain features or certain value is not needed to me, then that is where. So having a honest dialogue in such environment with the customer, that okay, fine, this is something which is, I cannot continue with it. So what is it that we would like to do? Do you need the same scope, same quality, same price? At times you need to revise the price. Have an honest conversation with the customer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this all comes with experience.
True. I think building investor relationship or partnership is key as organization grow, and especially in the startup ecosystem. Um, I'll break this up into two parts before we wrap up this segment. What are the best ways to initiate a conversation with a potential investor?
The best way to initiate the conversation with a potential investor is to understand what are his preferences.
Mm-hmm.
If the investor is not investing into your domain, then probably just walking and then introducing yourself is okay. But if he is investing into your domain, then try to have a power sentence which would attract his attention. Like while you are investing into D2C or maybe investing into E2 EV segment, I'm building something which is better in this aspect, then it would quickly get his attention. Because he understands what you are building, how you are building, the challenges of the industry, and that power sentence would help you get his eyeballs immediately.
Do you think platforms like LinkedIn is a great tool to nurture investor relationships?
Yes, I firmly believe so. I firmly believe so. But having a email blast to 2000 potential investor is a strict no.
Yes, absolutely. What role do informal check-ins and updates play in building trust with the investors?
It really helps because then you are actually, you are giving a personalized comment on their post or, wishing them a festival wishes, and that goes a long way.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't give this so much of importance, right?
Exactly. And then if it's his birthday, right now you also get to wish birthday on LinkedIn. Then write 2 lines and then attract his attention, right? If it is his work anniversary, then try to engage and then probably build a longer conversation over it. So these are the avenues which you can actually build a personalized relationship.
How do a founder communicate challenges or setbacks to investors?
Oh, that's a great question. Every founder has got certain challenges and they need help. It's not just money. Investor also has got a great network. They are also backed by experience. They also know other service providers who can offer certain same or better quality at cheaper rate. So if you are maintaining, yes, all is well to your investor, then probably investor also thinks that certain things are being hidden from him. But if you are honest and say, right now I'm facing these challenges and I'm planning to solve it in this fashion, let me know, what do you think? right? If you are vocal with your investor, if you open up your heart, and if you share proposed solution with him, then investors are willing to add value.
Hmm. It's so important. Just a question for you as from an ecosystem point of view. How do you think startups can balance transparency while protecting sensitive information?
So if any investor has invested into you, then definitely you need not hide anything from them, right? Because they are on your cap table, right? So you need not hide anything from them. Until they are on the cap table, they are formally invested, then you are protected. You are protecting your innovation or your IP via a due NDA, which has to be drafted by a qualified legal professional. So that serves all the purpose.
Um, are there any specific strategy you would recommend to build a network of advisors, informal investors, and probably the best cheerleaders for your startup? Is there any specific strategy apart? You did mention about events, participating in events and LinkedIn platforms.
So what I recommend to my mentees is to have a advisory board in place. Right? Apart from having mentors, you need to have advisory board. These advisory board members can be a iconic personality in respective fields. So as in when you pitch to an investor, they also get the idea that apart from you, who are other people who believe in what you are doing and they believe that you can make it big. These advisory board members bring in their experience, they bring in their network, and they also help and nurture your entrepreneurship journey. Right? So while a mentor is mentoring you, but the advisory board is something where you can actually leverage their business relationship and then open newer doors. Maybe not all mentors may be willing to play a door opener role on that side, but because these advisors have been there, done that, and they have got good relations, you can actually bank on their experience, their network, and grow together.
So this is the final question of this segment, which is feedback. And how do you treat investor rejections or as learning opportunities? What is the best way to do that?
So the best way to handle investor rejection is that right now you are not meeting their expectations. You need to work harder. You need to understand the reason for rejection. Many times what happens is founders just cut off. And my suggestion is, do not cut off and then burn the bridge.
How do you seek then actionable feedback?
Even if there is a rejection, try to have a conversation with them that what are the areas where we can improve, and if had it been there, then you would have invested into us.
Is there a line item feedback form or something?
So don't make it a kind of a survey kind of exercise, but an informal conversation may not be immediately, but even after a month or so, probably that helps.
Are there any common themes, Chintan, which are part of these feedbacks when it comes to investor rejections?
Yes. So common themes are many times the team is not ready for scale up. Many times they don't have the product roadmap. They are playing around 3-4 features and they are declaring themselves as a unique startup themselves. At times what we believe is they have certain traction, but the market size is not rightly assessed. So these are the main aspects. Uh, because what we believe is, I as an individual, I do not believe in certain profitability, because as and when you are launching, your profitability would be single digit. But as and when you scale up, as and when you get funded, you can hire better resources, and as and when you have operation at scale, with the right set of team members, your profitability can be improved.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
As and when you launch, your profitability would be very low. But if I'm committed to your idea and your growth potential, I can always bank on you and then probably change the profitability dynamics later as well. So that is where I firmly believe, and I exercise as well.
All right. With that, we wrap up the second segment, What's Brewing, and we move to the final segment, rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Are you ready, sir?
Yes.
All right. First, what's the single most factor that determines a startup success?
Momentum.
Okay. Should entrepreneurs focus more on market needs or passion projects?
Market needs.
Mhm. What's one lesson every startup founder should learn early on?
Make the product for customer, not for investor.
Wonderful. Um, do you see the role of ethics evolving in the tech startup space?
Yes. We are entering an era where we need to maintain balance on tech in ethics and ethics in tech.
Okay. Um, do you think the current funding model in India is sustainable?
Yes.
Mhm. What is that one mistake you repeatedly see in startup pitches?
We have built the MVP and now we are ready for getting investors.
Interesting question my team has put up. Should founders prioritize building a product or personal brand first?
Product.
Mhm. If you could change one regulation to help startups, what would it be?
Well, it's really a tricky question. But if I want to change one regulation,
Hmm.
that would be probably cross-border trade in friendly countries, and visa and access, market access. So that is something that I have been vocal about in
Forums,
in
events.
forums, in G20 forums.
Mhm.
Uh, there has to be entrepreneur visa for G20 countries. So you are able to, fly into these countries and access those markets. Collaboration and things should be encouraged. So yes, definitely I would like to promote entrepreneur visa for
Mhm.
G20 or BRICS countries.
True. I think so much needed. What's the most underrated trait in a successful entrepreneur?
Underrated trait.
When you see a successful entrepreneur,
Well, I would say, I would not say underrated, but I would say that people celebrate the startup, but not the person.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we as a founders need to understand the person and then learn from him.
Yeah, and I think when that happens, even the team working with the founder also begins to understand and appreciate the pain that a founder goes through.
Yes.
Some fun and interactive element in the rapid fire. If you had $1 million to invest, which sector would you pick?
I would pick up fintech
Mhm.
and healthcare.
Okay. Not climate tech.
Not yet.
Okay. What's the quirkiest startup idea you have ever come across?
Oh, quirkiest one was connecting feelings with the IoT device.
Ah, did that startup idea go up? Did that pick up?
No, not my.
Okay. If you could co-found a startup with anyone in history, who would it be?
Anyone in history.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would like to co-found a startup with Ratan Tata.
Mm-hmm. If you could create a one-word mantra for startups, what would it be?
Momentum.
What is that one song or movie, since you are a Bollywood fan, that best captures the startup journey?
Mm, I haven't been asked this question earlier, so I'll have to think. Uh, I guess one of those Kishore Kumar songs.
Anything specific which comes?
चला जाता हूँ किसी की धुन में.
That's a nice
Right?
song. That's really that makes a lot of sense. Um, Describe your dream startup pitch in 3 words.
In 3 words. So, I guess 3 words is something which is difficult.
केबीसी की तरह आप क्वेश्चन फ्लिप कर सकते हैं मैं आपको दूसरा सवाल कर सकता
हाँ,
हूँ
but I'm a big fan of a 6-word resume.
ओके
Okay, so I encourage people to write 6-word resume. Write anything in 6 words which narrates you from where you are coming in, from where you are going actually. Right, so my 6-word resume is your Sherpa in digital and beyond.
ओके योर शेरपा इन डिजिटल एंड बियॉन्ड ठीक है इफ यू वर टू start your own startup today, what is that one problem it would solve?
That would be a EV startup, and it would solve the range problem.
Oh, that's such a poignant statement. Yeah, we need that. What is the startup idea you wish you had thought of first?
Something related to early detection of cancer.
And I think just before the podcast started, I shared that I had a guest, Dr. Geeta Manjunath, who has a startup by the name Niramai, which actually does that. And the kind of work she does is just amazing. It is.
See, entire country came together as far as the pandemic was concerned.
Yeah, I think the
Right?
world came together, if you have to say.
Yes. So now is the time that we need to build similar kind of campaign for certain lifestyle diseases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And I think also not just that, I think when it comes to insurance, our health insurance, I personally feel it needs to have an absolute overhaul, especially when it comes to these pre-existing conditions, something like a cancer. I think it's something which needs to be done. All right. We are coming to the last section of the rapid fire round, this or that. And we'll wrap up. Bootstrapping or early funding?
Bootstrapping.
Big risks or steady growth?
Steady growth.
Product first or market first?
Market first.
Local expansion or global ambition?
Local expansion.
Tech startups or non-tech startups?
Non-tech startups.
Co-founder or solo founder?
Co-founder.
Networking events or online meetups? I guess both.
Yes, both.
Equity funding or revenue sharing model?
Revenue sharing model.
Build in public or operate in stealth?
Build in public.
All right, that was the end of the rapid fire segment. Thank you so much for your time. I think
my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. It has been an honor and pleasure to interact with you and learn about what you are building, the journey till now, and the direction what you are aiming for. I wish you all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you. And I can say this, that I'm really, the gentleman who introduced us told me, because I told him I'm really looking for some real solid mentorship. And he said, who better than Chintan sir? So thank you. I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you. A final question to wrap this up is, what's your vision for Bharat Startups, as this is a Bharat Startup podcast series? What's your vision? How do you think we as a nation can continue to foster innovation and collaboration?
So Bharat startup is, to me, is we are in the first wave of growth.
Mhm.
The next wave of growth has to be global.
Hmm.
We need to get our brands visible
Hmm.
beyond Indian stores in foreign markets, and which is about to begin. Like Amul has entered US market, so Amul would be widely recognized as an Indian brand, a dairy milk brand in American shelves, right? Same thing is with Ola. Probably Ola had expanded into Australia and UK. So this is the time where, or even Paytm to Canada and Japan. So this is the time where we need to take more brands on a global stage.
And yet retain our local flavor and our values.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much again for the wonderful conversation. I think your journey is truly inspiring, and I hope that the entrepreneurs, especially who are listening into this podcast, are inspired and to take the innovation forward. And to all our listeners, if you want to learn more about Chintan, you can reach out to him directly on LinkedIn. How do I sum up this episode? This has been a very special episode, as I'm an entrepreneur myself. I think the most important thing is to be transparent, to be authentic, and to share your story the way it is. I think, as I always say in this podcast, the most important conversation is the one we have with ourselves. But how we have those conversations with ourselves truly defines who we become. So thank you for listening in. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep networking. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Between Us podcast. The producer is Santosh Kumar, and the associate producer is Samyak Kamble. The Between Us podcast uploads episodes weekly, and we'll see you next time.